Hey, so I want to talk about garlic mustard. So garlic mustard is another really delicious wild edible plant, and it's actually an invasive species. So it is pretty abundant and can be a nuisance to some native species, but it's really delicious. So in addition to saving the native environment and species, you can also have a pretty tasty snack. So I'm out in the woods and I'm on this path. It's actually a deer path, but I know generally where I am, I know there's not much pollution going on here, and I can see that there is some garlic mustard here. It is tucked in these little shrubs here. This white flower is telling me that this is a cruciferous. These flowers with 4 petals that kind of make a shape of a cross is generally a member of the cruciferous family or the brassica family. So things like broccoli, kale, those are cousins of this plant, the garlic mustard. But not all of these plants will have flowers. So garlic mustard is a biannual, meaning it grows over a 2-year period. These plants are mature, so they've produced a flowering stalk, indicating that they're ready to reproduce. So they're a lot taller than first-year plants. And they have pointy leaves with jagged tooth edges. These plants, however, are younger garlic mustards in their first year, and you can see they have wider leaves that are more kidney-shaped, and the edges are a little bit smoother. They also grow in a more horizontal pattern, so they kind of sprawl outward rather than growing upwards. They don't have flowers. In my experience, the younger garlic mustard has more of the garlicky flavor, so it's a little bit more aromatic and savory, while the more mature garlic mustard has more of the bitter, mustardy flavor. But honestly, the best way to identify this plant would be to sniff it. So I got a leaf here. I'm gonna crush it up. And yeah, it's giving me a very garlicky aroma. Yeah, it smells like somebody's been cooking in the kitchen. So now I know I can confidently identify what this is. I'm gonna taste it. And it tastes exactly like what it is. How's that smell? Good. There are a couple of lookalikes, especially when the plant is in its younger phase, just popping up from the ground in the spring. This is another invasive plant, but a much more aggressive invasive called lesser calendine. It is distinguished by its yellow flowers, but if you look at the leaf shape, before the flowers start popping up, they do look very similar to young garlic mustard. But the growth pattern is very different. You can see the garlic mustard just growing as a kind of singular plant here, whereas the lesser calendine is just like a gang, like they're just sprawled out like everywhere, like they're just like, yo, we taking over. And then you got little garlic mustard, which does grow in groups sometimes, but you can see this thing just taking over everything. There are also significant differences in the leaf as far as texture goes. Don't eat that. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the garlic mustard leaf on the left and the lesser calendine leaf on the right. So again, you can see that clear difference in texture. On the right, it's a lot shinier. On the left, it's a very soft and a little bit lighter. And then at the edges there, the ridges of the garlic mustard have a tooth pattern, whereas the lesser calendine don't. This is another poisonous look-alike called white snake root, which resembles more of the mature plant rather than the younger first-year plant. A clear difference, though, is the leaves at this phase are curving upwards, so you can see them kind of pointing a little bit parallel to the stem. Whereas with the garlic mustard, I've always seen them growing perpendicular to the stem, just kind of jutting out. Another difference is there is no flowers. So with the white snake root, it's just a leaf at this phase. And with the garlic mustard, there will always be those 4-petaled white flowers. growing at the top, and sometimes multiple white flowers when the plant is more mature. So if you see this plant, don't eat it. It's poisonous. Do not eat it. I didn't tell you to eat it, so don't eat it. No. Nobody told you to eat it. Anyways, back to garlic mustard. I'm gonna harvest a little bit. Now I'm gonna try to get the roots because those can be used as a kind of horseradishy, wasabi kind of situation. Every part of this plant is edible or usable. You can use the stems in like a stock, just like make a little broth by boiling it. It's really flavorful. You can eat the leaves directly or crush them up, blend them up, season your food with them, or just eat them on their own. I have made like pestos with them, or just use them at the end of dishes to add flavor like I would garlic or any other herb. And the roots, like I said, are a kind of spicy horseradishy kind of situation. So you can use them however you would use horseradish or wasabi. Harvesting some garlic mustard leaves. Yeah, just harvesting some garlic mustard leaves. So here I'm harvesting a mature garlic mustard, pulling it up by the root, and you can see what that looks like. Harvesting some garlic mustard root, yeah, harvesting some garlic mustard root. One thing you should be mindful of if harvesting garlic mustard is that they produce thousands of tiny seeds. So those flowering stalks will burst out into these lookalikes, so these little seed pods that you see growing here, and each one of those can contain a lot of seeds. So if you are going to harvest, make sure that you are not spreading those seeds, which could easily fall out. And the thing about garlic mustard, why it's so invasive, is in addition to producing so many seeds per plant, they also can last in the soil for up to 5 years. They're also allelopathic, which means that they produce a chemical that they insert into the soil, which essentially competes with native plants and other species for space. So interfering with the fungal network makes it more difficult for the other plants to get the resources that they need to thrive and survive. So yeah, they're pretty mean. They're kind of like some bullies, just like the European colonizers they came over with.